this is that God said so. The fact that God said so shows you that the greatest doctrine in the world says that this won't harm you, that this actually will bring you benefit. And that's my contention. The contention of other people is that this is mutilization of little children, blah, 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 all this thing. How can you go ahead and mutilate and amputate? It's not an amputation. It's not taking off the limb. It's not going to affect him sexually. It's not going to make him less of a man. The foreskin removal is removal of a little bit of skin. Yes, it's very sensitive. So therefore it's sensitive. So what? If it's sensitive, you have more sensitivity to sexuality, which actually is a good thing to remove some of that because we're oversexed. Somebody says, well, you know, you Jews, you're involved in the pornograph trade. I'm not involved in any pornograph trade, and most of us are not involved in pornograph trade, and the vast majority are not involved in any pornography. And those who say that and do that, they're watching too much Jew hater, Jew baiting kind of stuff. And then you get someone like Escape Society that says, this is an amputation, and good Jewish people don't want to do that and question to do that. So I answer, somebody could be a very good person, be a kind and charitable person, but a Jew is somebody to whom the Torah was given. And if you don't accept the Torah, then you're not a good Jew. You may be a nice Jew, you may be a charitable Jew, but you're not a good Jew. You're not a good Jew because, or in spite of the fact, no. If you don't listen to God and you go against God's commandments, that's not being Jewish. That you can be a nice person, you can be a member of the world, but not a good Jew. The definition of a Jew is that they keep the Torah mitzvahs. And anybody who does not keep the Torah and the mitzvahs, the commandments, they will disappear as Jews. That's just a fact. That's the reality. So those are your choices. So this lady has the nerve to tell me that just because there's somebody who's against, doesn't accept the stoning of children and the murder or the killing of homosexuals, then just because they reject that, therefore they're bad people. I'm saying they're bad people. First of all, it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that they killed children. It's not a child. She quoted to me the stoning of the rebellious child, called the Ben Saramora. The rabbis in the Talmud identify 40 different or so qualifications necessary to be able to mete out the capital punishment toward that particular person. The person's got to be the beginning of his adulthood. He's 13 years old. So, that's just a child. Not a child. In the olden days, you got married at 13. You became responsible for yourself. People couldn't afford to have their kids around and giving them high school and college. Kids went to work when they were younger, before they were bar mitzvah. Kids at 13 were mature, responsible for themselves. This teenager was a thief. He had to steal money. He had to drink a large amount of wine and eat meat in the way that meat was eaten by the highway robbers, which means that he was involved in a gang, he was a drunkard, or he was addicted to drink and gluttonous of food, and he had to steal money, and he was wasting his father's assets. And his father tried to stop him, and he refused to listen. And this is where the child then is brought into the court. And here, if they have not normal parents, if the parents are poor, if the parents have difficult circumstances, so they have all kinds of circumstances where the parents are not normal, then the child goes free without even lashes. It's only if the child has perfect parents, born from a perfect home, everything is good, and this child decides he wants to live a life of crime, it's only then that capital punishment was meted out. And again, this was an adult who made the decision, who was warned, and was given lashes publicly. He's not a rebellious child at all. It's an adult who's dangerous. When you don't listen to your parents, and you steal money, and you're an addict, and you go around with a bunch of no-goodniks who are killers and thieves and robbers, you know what's going to happen to this kid. Kid's going to become a destructive element in society. Go to Southern California, see what those gangs do. It's exactly what the kid was like. Totally different. And guess what? The restrictions on killing such a child, such a son, not a child, such an adult, are so many that the Talmud says it never happened. There are just too many possibilities to exonerate the person. And so, my dear friend, you're ignorant of the Torah. It's not a child, it's not 2 years old, it's not 3 years old, it happens to be an adult. He has to be a drunk, he has to steal, he has to be gluttonous, he has to run around with no good people, he has to be a person that is totally incorrigible. Parents have tried everything, and the parents have to be willing to put their son away. Really, can you imagine parents wanting to put a child away? The kid had to really be a bad, bad apple, a bad, bad egg. And even then, the rabbis wouldn't do it. The other objection, homosexuals. Homosexuals are a destructive kind of behavior, whether you like it or not. I don't care how popular gay rights are. Homosexual causes the destruction of that person's possible family, or her possible family. It is a perversion of the sexual activities of a person. It's not the way the plumbing was made within a person. A person was given certain things for a purpose. The purpose of all of our sexuality is procreation. That's the reason why it's there. The whole reason why the flower is beautiful and it's got all these things and it smells right is just so the flower could propagate. That's the reason why women are attracted to men and vice versa. So we can have relations and have kids. That's the purpose. When you go ahead and engage in activities that are counter to that, that's a perversion of the way God set up the world. And God says that. It's an abomination. It's the wrong thing to do. Now, were there homosexuals who were killed? I tell you the same thing. In order to be killed in a court, there had to be 2 witnesses there at the time of the engaged sexual activity. The 2 witnesses had to be above bar mitzvah, and they had to be religious people. They had to also warn the person that if the person engaged in that, he would be guilty, he would have to face capital punishment. And they would have to identify the sin that the particular person was transgressing. And then the sinner would have to go ahead and complete his act within a second and a half. Waited 2 seconds, we say, well, maybe he had to change the heart. Maybe he forgot. And so, capital punishment for homosexuality was non-existent in the ancient world. It just didn't happen. The fact that it's on the books is to discourage that particular kind of activity. The same thing is true for desecrating the Shabbos. Yeah, 1 person was killed for desecrating the Shabbos. And that's it. People were not killed for desecrating the Shabbos. They were afraid to, because it was on the books. But people, rarely, if ever, who were found desecrating the Shabbos would be killed by the court. You really had to be a real wicked person to get yourself killed. There are just too many ways out of it. And so, my friend, before you go ahead and cast aspersions on the Torah, the standards of the Torah were not given by me, or by you, or by anyone else. God does not ask us if we like His laws. God gave us the laws the way God saw fit in the Torah. You don't believe in God, you don't believe in Torah, fine, say so. You don't believe in God, you don't believe in Torah. Why are you arguing about circumcision? Argue about all of the Torah. The answer is, that's really your agenda. So say, you're anti-religious, you're anti-religion, you don't like people who are religious, believing in a higher authority than themselves. That's your problem. You don't want an authority higher than yourself. Or you don't know. So